And we are live from New York. No. Welcome in, guys. Welcome in. Welcome back to the Book Club Bros podcast, filming in Florida, actually. And we are finishing up part 4 of the Atomic Habits by James Clear. And yeah, overall thoughts.
Great book, bro.
Great book.
Another
The second
and
round.
yeah, exactly. First round, first time for me. First time, long time. It was good. I really liked it. I mean, there's a lot of just like it says, tiny changes that you can make that just don't even realize how much it compounds. I just think back to the first stories that we went over. Like it kind of referenced it a little bit, where it was the cycling team that made those little
Yeah.
0.1% changes and all these different aspects that led to just the drastic changes. But really good book overall. We'll get the summary over here at the end of our discussion.
Yep.
But let's go ahead and break it down, starting with
Chapter 15, the cardinal rule of behavior change.
the fourth law: make it satisfying.
Yes, very
That's the
true.
page before
That's right. That's right. Make it satisfying. Starting off with chapter 15.
Yeah.
And I had something on 188 that I wanted to share, but does anyone have anything before that?
On 185 near the bottom, they were talking about how chewing gum changed, like the evolution of chewing gum, starting from regular chewing gum, and they said Wrigley's was the brand that changed the game because they actually got it to be flavored chewing gum instead of people just chewing regular gum, and that just connects into the whole habit thing of like making things enjoyable to create your habit. So I thought that was just a really fun story.
Can
we
you imagine?
we live in such a different age. I think it's so crazy how you can live in different time periods to where it's just like I mean we talked about it before to where like it was just normal for there to be cocaine and Coca-Cola.
Oh,
Or
yeah.
like things not being regulated compared to like, it used to just be normal to chew flavorless gum. Like I've never had the urge to just be like, oh, I just want to.
Chew.
I mean, I guess maybe some people like chew on straws and like chew on like toothpicks and stuff like that. But I mean, even the invention, I don't know when this was, but whenever I was in high school, I had a buddy of mine who had a dad that worked who owned this warehouse and would bring out these, first time I'd ever seen it, these caffeinated flavored toothpicks.
Mm.
Like that you could just know.
Really?
I don't know if you've seen it. Have you heard of it before?
Yeah, I've heard.
Yeah, it was just like this new invention or whatever it was, where it was just like the whole thing's coated like in some type of flavoring, and then it also has some caffeine on there that like and it just comes in this little thing. You just pop one in, you just chew on it for a little bit. Once it
Wow.
kind of goes away, it's
That's
kind of like
crazy.
chewing on straw because it wasn't like as hard as a toothpick, obviously. But yeah, just like the
That's-
different phases and stuff like that you can live in. I mean, it's weird to think that adding flavor is such a game changer whenever it's so obvious now. Like there's
Right.
not unflavored gum really.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, I can't imagine like chewing just like nothing basically. But yeah, that was a cool story about the Wrigley's.
And then I had one on 186 that kind of builds off of the whole, make it satisfying. It says, conversely, if an experience is not satisfying, we have little reason to repeat it. What is rewarded is repeated. What is punished is avoided. Positive emotions cultivate habits. Negative emotions destroy them. So I thought that was just like, I mean, it's one of those things that just like obviously makes sense. But I mean, that's kind of what the whole premise is of this last one, where it says make it satisfying. If you have stuff you're trying to get rid of, you just have to make it unsatisfying. And it talks about that a little bit later on, about how to like make it more immediately
Mhm.
unsatisfying to be able to stop the behavior.
Yeah. Positive reinforcement. 188, my highlight was okay. You understand how the brain prioritizes rewards. The answers become clear. The conscience of bad habits are delayed while rewards are immediate. Smoking might kill you in 10 years, but it reduces stress and eases nicotine cravings now. Overeating is harmful in the long run, but appetizing in the moment. Sex, safe or not, provides pleasure right away. Disease and infections won't show up for days or weeks or even years. We all want better lives for our future selves. However, when moment of decision arrives, instant gratification usually wins. You are no longer making a choice for your future you who dreams of being a fitter or wealthier or happier. You're choosing present you who wants to be full, pampered, and entertained. As a general rule, the more immediate pleasure you get from an action, the more strongly you should question whether it aligns with your long term goals. thought that was really good. But yeah, just
Yeah.
building off like delayed gratification is like the end goal. I think we heard that in another book too,
I was thinking that as
of
you were reading
delayed
it. Yeah.
gratification.
I know it talks about it like it says like with our bad habits, immediate outcome usually feels good, but the ultimate outcome is bad. And then conversely, with good habits, it feels like you're denying yourself creating that discipline. It was probably in a book that we were reading about discipline,
Yeah.
and the immediate outcome's unenjoyable, but the overall outcome feels good. So with all that considered, they go on to say at the bottom of 189, with the fuller understanding of what causes our brain to repeat some behaviors and avoid others, let's update the cardinal rule of behavior change. What is immediately rewarded is repeated. What is immediately punished is avoided. So before that, it was like what is repeated, or what is rewarded is repeated. What is punished is avoided. But it's more about like giving yourself some type of immediate
That
something.
reaction.
Yeah, immediate
Yeah.
reaction. It's like the whole thing where I mean, you can do something, right? You can steal and get away with it, and there's like no immediate punishment.
Yeah.
What may come is hours later where you feel guilty, right? I mean, if you're trying to steal something, you get done. There's no punishment. Boom, like you're in the clear. You
You get
commit a
that
crime.
rush.
You
Yeah.
commit a crime. You're good. You whatever you were trying to do, right? But then the cost could be A, they find out what happened. B, you got to live with it. Whatever it is. I mean, just certain like it definitely works in that way.
Yeah, and then I had a small thing on 192, and that's about it for me. What about you guys for this chapter?
I had one there too, but you go ahead.
I have one on 191.
Oh, go ahead.
At the
Roll.
bottom. It's talking about how it's okay. So immediate reinforcement can be especially helpful when dealing with habits of avoidance, which are behaviors you want to stop doing. Further down, it goes to say one solution is to turn the situation on its head. You want to make avoidance visible. Open a savings account and label it for something you want, maybe leather jacket. Whenever you pass on a purchase, put the same amount of money in the account. Skip your morning latte, transfer $5. Pass on another month of Netflix, move 10 over. And I wrote on the side like I want to try this because I feel like that'd be a good way to just save. Like if you make that account and you're like, okay, like today I'm not gonna go to the gas station get a snack.
Yeah.
Let me take that $5 or $6 and put it into my savings.
That you were gonna spend.
Exactly. So
And in like certain ways, I've done this before, not like systematically, but it's like, hey, we're going on vacation at the end of this month. We typically would go out to eat this week. Let's just save that money. We're gonna spend that $40 on vacation. Oh, okay, we would typically go and do this. We got vacation coming up next weekend. We're gonna not go and do this. We're not gonna go out to eat. We're not gonna go buy that snack. We're not gonna go watch that movie because you have something that you're working towards or saving towards, which is your time and money for that vacation. It can work. I mean, you're not going on vacation probably every month, so then you almost would need something else to trigger like, what am I giving up in service of this?
Yeah, that is cool though. I wanna see some progress updates on that
yeah, bro.
as
I'm
that
gonna try
continues to grow.
Start it this week.
My little thing on mine's at the bottom of 192. Here's
Mine's somewhat at the bottom, but I don't think it's what you highlighted. All right, I'll go right before you.
okay.
So just above that, it says, the more a habit becomes part of your life, the less you need outside encouragement to follow through. Incentives can start a habit. Identity sustains a habit. So it says like, you can do certain stuff like that, but it goes all the way back to, I don't know if it was, I think it was the portion before this last, I think it was part 2, where it talked a lot about forming your identity based habits. Because if you feel like you're trying to achieve something that's outside, like it all makes sense. Like if you feel like you're trying to get something done that like even a small part of you believes you can't do, or it's not who you really are or something like that, like you got to flip it on its entire head. Like how are you going to be someone who shows up on time consistently if you still look at yourself as someone like, I'm just always late?
Right.
Like, I mean, it's so easy to just stay stuck in that portion. So it's like, yeah, you can get those incentives, like use those like little incentives and stuff like that to build your habit. But then it has to be some type of like, I'm not somebody who saved to get these shoes. I'm somebody who saves to get what they want. Like, it's not like, then you have to turn it into more of just like a broad based identity type thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It comes down to what was that? Way in the back, that was like first part of it was like just identifying like who you want to be and then building the habits around that. My highlight right underneath that is, in summary, a habit needs to be enjoyable for it to last. Short and simple on that. Moving on, chapter 16, how to stick with good habits every day. I got something on 197. What about you?
You go ahead.
You
I
good?
got 197 too.
197 I have is under
Same
the
thing.
the same thing. Yeah. Benefit number one, habit tracking is obvious. So it says research has shown that people who track their progress on goals like losing weight, quitting smoking, and lowering blood pressure all are more likely to improve than those who don't. One study of more than 1,600 people found that those who kept a daily food log lost twice as much weight as those who did not. The mere act of tracking a behavior can spark the urge to change it. Yep.
Yep. And then continuing on to benefit number 3. I mean, I just really highlighted the summary. So, habit tracking, 1, creates a visual cue that can remind you to act. 2, is inherently motivating because you see the progress you are making and don't want to lose it. And 3, feels satisfying whenever you record another successful instance of your habit. And then, furthermore, habit tracking provides visual proof that you are casting votes for the type of person you wish to become, which is a delightful form of immediate and intrinsic gratification. And I wrote, tracking habits gives you instant reward. So that's actually something I tried before. And the first time I was reading this book, I shared it with a friend, and I told him like, yeah, like if you want to do this, if you want to, I forgot what habit he was. I believe it was like writing. And
Mm.
he's like, I want to start writing more. And I'm like, try like his idea was to take a marble, put it in a cup every time he writes,
Mm.
and then
Mhm.
once it gets full, then like you can reward yourself with something. And he actually did it, and it worked for him.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's
it's crazy.
awesome. I think we learn about that Marvel thing later in this.
Yeah, I'm
I
pretty
don't know
sure.
if it's
Yeah,
in this
And it
chapter or
talks
not.
about it too. I
yeah.
think like the only downside or downstream effect to habit tracking is it being enjoyable, like it being something where it's not like he even goes on to talk about like don't track 20 different habits in a notebook. Pick out one, your most important habit, get that down, make sure it's a science to where it's just like, just like it's eating, you're just doing it naturally and then add one. And then add one because I think that's the only part of it where it would just be like it sounds great, right? The first week
Yeah.
sounds like amazing the first month, and then like you start to get like how do you walk that line of maybe I've fully got this habit down, now I can move on to tracking another one and then not letting it slip. I like that. I don't know, remember if it was like the previous portion, if it's later on in this one where it's just like you get to a certain point and then once you like become a master of something and then you stop working on it, like you will start to get slightly worse.
Yeah.
Like you just start to get slightly worse at it. But I liked on benefit too. I just highlighted where it said the most effective form of motivation is progress. Like that goes back to uh, basically what you were just saying and what we were saying. Like with the if you're gonna start doing yoga, get out your yoga mat.
Hmm.
Don't even do anything. If you want to run a marathon, tie your running shoes.
Yeah, it's that
Like
simple.
like some like just certain things like that, just to trigger progress in your brain and stuff.
Yeah. And building on top of like the just tracking and the habit, I think there was this. I don't know if it's in this chapter or they're saying like, yeah, building a habit's hard enough. Building another habit to track it is like something else too. So it is something that
I think it's not for everyone.
yeah.
I mean that can be the thing. Where it's just like you don't want to get to the point where it's like it becomes a negative. Like if you start like it makes your habit that you're trying to get better at or worse at or kick or add to become like okay, I'm not gonna be able to do it.
Yeah.
Like I think that's just the problem. Like just that some people struggle with to various degrees of like depending on how hard on yourself you are. Like I was just for whatever reason just brought up or turned into someone who's relatively hard on myself whenever you like don't get done what you're trying to get done because all of a sudden it's like I could have done that and then you just go down this whole thing where it's just like why was I not able to get that accomplished or something, and just trying to be like if you live in that space you're gonna just not be able to move on and take your next step forward. Like always go 2 steps forward even if there's 1 step back.
Yeah, speaking of, I think also in this chapter, it's one of the first times where we talk about what to do when you actually break a habit. On 201, my highlight was the first mistake is never the one that ruins you. It's the spiral of repeated mistakes that follow. Missing once is an accident. Missing twice is the start of a new habit.
That is, I used that in my study this week. Whenever I was talking with Ryan in my Bible study,
Oh
I was
yeah.
telling him like I don't remember how it exactly applied to what we were talking about, but I was like, dude, this is a. He's like, what? Like that is like, that's like a really wise like comment. Like I literally said like
Yeah, I
what like
plagiarized
I
that.
think it was like talking about my reading or whatever that I do outside of this, and I was just like, yeah, you miss once, it's an accident. The second time it starts a new habit. I liked at the bottom of 200 where it says no, because you got to be realistic about just like things that can happen in
Oh man,
life. And it says
dude,
like
life is.
it says no matter how consistent you are with your habits, and it's inevitable that life will interrupt you at some point. Perfection is not possible. Before long, an emergency will pop up. You get sick, or you have to travel for work, or family needs a little bit more of your time. Whenever this happens, I try to remind myself of the simple rule: never miss twice. And then he goes on to kind of say what you said
Yeah.
about that portion of it. But I was like, yeah, I mean that's because that's the toughest part. That's why you want to form, and it's I feel like it's easier for some people than others. Like that's just how I feel. That it's easier for some people than others to be like, oh, you missed the day, dang it, just move on. Like it's okay.
Yeah.
Compared to, I can't believe I missed that day.
Yeah.
I miss it. I'm so mad that I missed that day. I may as well just not do it anymore.
Hmm.
Like man, like, and that can be for like certain types of habits, but like yeah, I mean, I thought that portion. I mean, just trying to form some type of positive viewpoint whenever that stuff inevitably happens, right? Because perfection's just tough.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that happens to me at least is like sometimes uh like I'll have a habit that I want to do, and it's life will come at you, and like I won't, let's say I'm like trying to block like a specific hour, like going to the gym, and it's like okay, like I want to, leave here at 4:30 to get to the gym at 5. And then next thing you know, like someone's like talking to me at 4:30 or something like that, and it's like creeping into the gym time. It's like, all right, now I only have like 30 minutes into the gym. It's not even worth it. I'm not gonna go. But he goes on 201, and he says, you don't realize how valuable it is just to show up on your bad days.
Mm.
Lost days hurt you more than successful days help you. If you start with $100 and then add a 50% gain, it will take you to 150. But when you only need a 33% loss to take you back to 100. So it's just like that's the mindset that I gotta work on. Is just like I still have 30 minutes. I can still go there, maybe like walk on the treadmill or something, even though I'm not gonna get the full workout in.
Hmm.
Don't bail on it entirely.
And I don't know if he talks about it in that portion somewhere and we just glossed over it or because it was just a story, but he's like, what separates athletes from professional athletes are the ones that can show up on the mundane days, do the exact same drills.
Yeah.
Because like we said, you can master it to a certain point, but if you stop working on hitting the outside curveball, because like you've been hitting it really well and you start just focusing, okay, well I got that covered, and then you stop looking at it.
Yeah.
Like we can even speak to this. You feel like you got really good grip on your curveball, right? You throw a great curveball. What do you? So you're just not going to work on it anymore.
Yeah.
It's just like it will become
Consistency.
it will. That's how you master anything is by just repetition over and over again. And if you want to get to the highest level, then you never stop. If you want to get really, really good, you never stop till a certain point, and then you're really good, and your muscle memory takes over, and you can still continue to be very good,
Hmm.
but you're not a master anymore.
Moving on, chapter 17. Before we do that, is there any last things that we need in 16 you guys want to highlight?
I think I'm good.
I'm good.
Chapter 17, how an accountability partner can change everything. Um, I had no highlights. This was pretty standard. It was good,
Yeah.
but I mean, it was, the at least for me, the chapter kind of explained itself. Like, yeah, obviously having someone there accountable is going to keep you on track. But do you
Yeah.
guys have anything?
No, I mean I can definitely speak to that. That's kind of what I use Ryan for whenever I do my Bible study and stuff like that. I guess the only highlight I did have was on 206 where it just says, just as we're, but it's basically what we already talked about. Just as we're more likely to repeat an experience when the ending is satisfying, we're more likely to avoid an experience when the ending is painful. The more immediate the pain, the less likely the behavior. If you want to prevent bad habits and eliminate unhealthy behaviors, then adding an instant cost to the action is a great way to reduce the odds. That's something that I guess we've already talked about. But I do think that having an accountability partner is probably like the high, like you, not just someone that you go and talk to, like an accountability partner. Because if there's something that like, hey man, like I'm really struggling with drinking, I'm going to the bar, doing all this stuff, acting up like he's like, okay, I'm gonna meet with you once a week, and you're gonna have to ask me how many times I drank.
Yeah.
And then it's just like having that there because it's just like choose your accountability partner wisely, not someone that like you don't care what they think about you. Because then you can just show up and be like, I've drank 10 times in the last 7 days, but I'm gonna say I've drank 4 times. He's still gonna be like, dude, you can do better at that. Well, it's a good thing you don't know the real like.
Right.
Then you're just going against the point of an accountability partner. But I mean, having one is very useful. I feel like.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I think we're all social. So knowing that like you're going through something together just eases
Yeah.
eases it because building a habit or breaking a habit both are difficulty and need work. I thought it was really good. If you guys are listening to review page 212, he really starts breaking down all of how to create a good habit and a bad habit and summarizes all the charts down. I thought it was really nice. You can actually download a printable version of the habit cheat sheet at atomichabits.com/cheat sheet.
Nice.
Free promo.
There you go. Moving on, chapter 18. We're going into the advanced tactics now. How to go from being merely good to being truly great. Chapter 18. The truth about talent, when genes matter and when they don't.
Ooh, this was a fascinating read.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
I had something on 218 to start us off. Anything before that for you guys?
No, I'm on 221.
Go for it.
218. The secret to maximizing your odds of success is to choose the right field of competition. This is just as true with a habit change as it is with sports and business. Habits are easier to perform and more satisfying to stick with when they align with your natural inclinations and your abilities. So it's like and so the whole story was between Michael Phelps and this runner named Hikem, and how he's like Michael Phelps is and Hikem like one's an elite runner, one's an elite swimmer, but little do you know they have the exact same length of legs.
Mhm.
One's 6'4", the other one's like 5'11" or whatever it was, and it was just like Michael Phelps is built to be a swimmer and the other guy is built to be a runner. Clearly, if they swapped roles, they would both be not good at it. So it's just like reinforcing that DNA. But who was next? Who had something before?
That one on 221 at the top. It's just just going back to like how your personality traits and stuff. It was talking about the children. They played a noise in the hospital, and it said when the researchers tracked these children through life, they found that the babies who turned towards the noise were more likely to grow up to be extroverts. Those who turned away were more likely to become introverts. People who are high in agreeableness are kind in People who are high in agreeableness are kind, considerate, and warm. They also tend to have higher natural oxytocin levels, a hormone that plays an important role in social bonding. And yeah, I just highlighted these parts because I'm like, it's crazy that you can track these things and it leads like a baby wanting to look towards a sound, they become an extrovert,
Yeah.
and then the babies who look away are introverts, and then like just the fact that if you have this natural like I guess I wouldn't even say calmness, but like if you're somebody who people agree with most of the time, you naturally have higher oxytocin levels, which makes sense at the end of it.
Yeah, when reading this, part of me was like, "Yo, is there a test out there that like actually breaks down all this stuff? Like you do a blood test and you're like, okay, you're like, you're an introvert, you have this, and you're like, oh, okay, that makes so much sense you know, when like my mom comes out to me and asks for a favor, it's like, oh, okay, because I'm highly irritated in the morning or something. It's like I understand now.
Did you guys ever have to do? Were you guys ever told to? Is it the personality test? Like, because we had to do this for like a career class. You had to take the test, and it tells you like your personality type broken down all the way.
I think so.
Are you talking like I've done something along the lines of like, are you more introverted versus extroverted and
Yeah.
stuff like that?
That's
But
like a segment of the test.
yeah, I mean, I
Yeah,
feel like
isn't
I've
it
done
like
something close
it's like
to
a
it.
PS. There's
But what
like
is
you're
it?
like a P,
Yes.
a D, or something like there's like
yes,
letters.
yes.
Yeah, I
But
remember it.
It's like it. I don't know. It was for our career class in high school, and
I feel like I
you
did
had to
that.
take the test, and it gives you a breakdown of each of those like categories, It's like, okay, you're extrovert. Okay, you like to be clean, tidy. Like you like to be organized. I feel like we went through it in the book. I feel like
I'm
it was
sh-
the Gary
I
V
get it.
book.
I
I
think
think it was
so.
because it was right. It was.
Oh,
Do you remember?
no, what
Yes,
was it?
it
Wasn't
was. But it because I know what you're talking about at the career fair. Like it would help you even determine what kind of job you
Yes,
should do.
exactly.
It would help you like
Yeah,
what you're
I
most
don't
likely.
know if it was.
It was no. It was the
Was it a
Gary V
pers-
book.
I feel
was
like
it a
it was.
personality though, or was it something else?
It's this. I mean,
'Cause
I think it's the same principles.
I
I'm
thought it
book's
was
right there.
I thought it was the overthinking or the
Overachiever? Are you?
yeah, it was like overachiever, underachiever. It was like one of your or how you
How you problem solve?
was I don't know which
Was it
one. It was
problem
the it was the therapist book that we did.
Oh,
Dang it.
imposter.
Yeah, I think it was like
Imposter
what
syndrome.
that was what type of imposter you are.
Yeah, that,
No,
that's
but
what
but
you're.
we did
Yeah.
something for
we do
Gary
another
V
one?
Gary V
too.
was
Gary V
Oh,
had
did,
it.
really?
Yeah, Gary V had it too. But
I'll
yeah,
have
I
to
do
go
know
back
it
and reread it then.
because that's how I feel like. Yeah, what are we reading these books for? We don't even know we're getting. But no, I do like that's where I mean, it's just that's where you want to choose your field and your stuff like that wisely because like otherwise you're gonna feel like that's what they talk about a little bit. You're gonna feel like you have to do so much more just whenever everyone else feels like they're coasting by. I think that's what the back half of this book kind of really tried to hit on was like you can like try and figure out what makes you happy, try and figure out the best version of yourself and then figure out where that plugs in to your daily life. Like that's kind of what we all are trying to do by not taking corporate jobs is like, you know, I mean, I like we it's so normal that but we can't even really imagine it for the most part. Just the three of us sitting here, like having to go to work for someone, like just someone working for someone who works for someone who works for someone. Like just showing up to a job like that where it's just like, hey, like you got to run it up the chain. If you don't, if you're not going to show up today, or you're going to need to take this day off or something like that, compared to like, oh, I got to do this, so I'm going to come in at this time instead of that time, and I'll make it up at this time instead of that time, and having that ability, and how like how big of a benefit that is and can be compared to like some people who just get they're steered one direction and don't have that open mindedness, and I feel like that's way more of like a thing of the past where it was just like I mean I was watching this podcast where or even like Jason Kelsey and Travis Kelsey's mom was told not to go to college and to just like marry, be the housewife and the stuff like that. Like we're almost moving all the way away from that. Like there's really not a lot of that going on anymore. So just the way that the world shifts and changes and stuff like that.
Yeah. I had something on 224. Anyone got anything?
Here, let
before
me
that?
flash it back to 219 really quick. Just where I liked how it talks about like the biological determinism and stuff like that. Like whenever it comes to genes, like you said, you want to pick like in certain and it basically just goes off what I was just saying. In certain environments, you're gonna feel like you're having to work way harder or way less, depending on if you choose something that kind of relates to what you want to do. So, but it does go on to say like, in short, genes do not determine your destiny; they determine your areas of opportunity. A physician, Gaber Mate, notes, genes can predispose, but they don't predetermine. So it's like, yeah, I mean, if we want to be professional basketball players, it's gonna be way harder. You know, would we be the first 5'10" basketball players ever? No. We wouldn't be the first 5'10" NBA players, but if we did try and go that route, we'd have to be the best shooters, the quickest, really strong, good on defense, stuff like that. So that would be a tougher route, but we can do something else. Like you can choose something that like if your genes don't steer you in a certain direction, 7 feet tall people just kind of stumble into playing basketball,
Yeah.
really, or pitching or something along those lines. Short and really stocky people stumble into catching sometimes whenever it comes to baseball.
Yeah.
Like your genes predetermine or don't predetermine or don't predispose, but which one is it?
They don't
Genes
predetermine.
don't predetermine. Yeah, they
Yeah.
just predispose. Like, if you're gonna go this route, just to be aware of it because like it'll just end up making your life a little bit easier.
Yeah. Yeah. Play to your strengths, even on the gene
Play to
level.
your strengths, exactly.
Yeah, I had a little short thing at 24 and then 225. The work that hurts you less than it hurts others is the work that you were made to do. I thought that was an interesting way to point or like to put in perspective of like do what's easy for you. And then building on top of that on 225 is if you can't find a game where the odds are stacked in your favor, create one. Scott Adams, the cartoonist behind Dilbert, says everyone has at least a few areas where they could be the top 25% with some effort. In my case, I can draw better than most people, but I am hardly an artist. I am not any funnier than the average stand-up comedian who never makes it big, but I am funnier than most people. The magic is the few people that can draw well and write jokes. It is a combination of those two that makes what I do so rare. And when you add that in with my business background, suddenly I had a topic that a few cartoonists could hope to understand it, without living it. So I thought that was just like an interesting concept. Like sometimes like your genes, don't predispose you to like, you look like you're an average Joe, but really you're like good at a few things. But if you multiply those, then you become super unique and super uh, talented.
Yeah, like I mean, I highlighted just under that where it talks about, kind of building off that when you can't win by being better at like a certain being the best, being better than everyone at this
Right.
certain trait, then you can win by being different. By combining your skills, you reduce the competition, which makes it easier to stand out. And then all the way at the bottom it says, a good player works hard to win the game everyone else is playing. A great player creates a new game that favors their strengths and avoids their weaknesses.
Yep.
So
There you go.
that's cool.
And then I think that's all I had. You got anything else, Leno? For that chapter? Nope.
Well, we're
Gotta go.
good.
Chapter 19, the Goldilocks rule: how to stay motivated in life and work. And I thought that was an interesting story with the famous comedian Steve Martin.
Mm-hmm.
How he started as in Disneyland, uh, under 10 years old, in Disneyland selling, what was it? Guidebooks for 50 cents a piece, and then slowly evolved into one of the most successful comedians ever known, Steve Martin. And
Just tested out different jokes and added like a minute or two to his routine
yep,
every year.
yep,
Basically doing the exact thing that was done or that was kind of explained a few last portion of the reading
yeah,
where it was like just take it all in stride.
yeah,
At the bottom of 230, just kind of playing off of that, it says, how do we design habits that pull us in rather than ones that fade away? This is basically the explanation of the Goldilocks rule. Uh, Scientists have been studying this question for many years. While there is still much to learn, one of the most consistent findings is that the way to maintain motivation and achieve peak levels of desire to work on tasks of just manageable difficulty. The human brain loves a challenge, but only if it's within optimal difficulty zone. The Goldilocks rule states that humans experience peak motivation when working on tasks that are right on the edge of their current abilities. Not too hard, not too easy, just right. So I mean, it kind of goes on and explains stories about like if you're trying to become better at tennis, you don't want to play, you know, 6 year olds, and you don't want
right,
to play Roger Federer.
yeah,
You got to find someone. I mean, that's why you have JV. That's why you have varsity. That's why you have certain things like that where it's like you wouldn't want your varsity team to go play some other school's JV team. Your JV team's probably not going to compete very well with someone else's varsity team. That's why they kind of have it broken up that way. But like, I really obviously I agree with that. But I thought it was cool too when they flip over and they start talking about the flow state
yeah,
because that's something that you've probably heard it before. You hear so many even athletes just find a way to like reference that and like get to that period of where they reach their flow state where they're, whenever you get to a certain level in anything, but we'll just stick with sports for right now. They're the 450 best players in the world, and all these NBA players basically talk about how like whoever the worst player is basically cooking anyone outside of the league, anyone
yeah,
outside of the NBA for the most part. So you get to these points where you get the Nikola Jokic's, the Steph Curry's, the stuff like that, where they just reach this, where it's like they're all playing the same game. And like, yeah, they're the best in the world, but they can't be the best in the world every single possession. So like, they'll have games where it ebbs and flows and stuff like that, and then boom, someone goes for like 70, and it's like not like everyone else they were playing just got worse. They just found that way to like, they're just right on the cusp of that flow state where it's like everything you're normally doing and thinking about and stuff like that that's a difficult task for you is like just coming natural as easy as it would be if you weren't challenging yourself. Like everything's just like in lockstep, which is basically kind of what the flow state is. And I thought that was like a really cool concept to read about.
yeah, yeah. The flow state's always fascinating about just like just feeling that focus, that immense focus, and then like coming out of it. It is really crazy to feel like you're just like, whoa, like
It's
Where did
basically
time
when things
go?
are all clicking, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because we experience like you. I mean, you can experience this in anything. Like you've probably experienced it coding countless times, where it's like you'll have the majority of what you do is a challenge, not one that you can't solve, but you're running into hiccups. Okay, fix this. Boom. Okay, fix this. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, that went, that worked, that worked, that worked, that worked. And all of a sudden you're like, whoa, typically I'm like troubleshooting this
Yeah.
and trying to figure this out compared to like, oh, this is just boom, 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 boom. And you feel like you're just flowing. That's just, I mean, I've never seen it like kind of explained out like that.
Yeah. Yeah. This book is just great for that stuff.
Yeah.
I had a really short thing on 236. Professionals stick to schedule. Amateurs let life get in the way.
It's basically the showing up and not missing a day.
Did anyone else have anything for chapter 19? Nope, that is it. All right. Final chapter of the book, chapter 20, the downside of creating good habits. It's an interesting one. Because why would you want the downside of creating good habits? We'll find out. All right. Who's got the first highlight? I don't have anything.
Let me kick us off. I'm at the bottom of the first page. The upside of habits is that we can do things without thinking. The downside of habits is that you get used to doing things a certain way and stop paying attention to little errors. This is basically what we were referencing earlier. So you assume you're getting better because you're gaining experience, but in reality, you are merely reinforcing your current habits, not improving them. In fact, some research has shown that once a skill has been mastered, there is usually a slight decline in performance over time. So it's one of those things where it's like, yes, I think that's really what really what separates, the good from the great, right? I mean, and you'll see it. I mean, we just keep it sports for right now. So you show up and like everyone on the baseball team, everyone on the basketball team is there for practice. All 12, all 25, all whoever. And a lot of them are just getting their reps in. And then there's Steph Curry who works out like it's the fourth quarter every single time he gets the ball and puts up a shot. Same thing with Kevin Durant. Same thing with Bryce Harper. Same thing with Albert Pujols. Same thing with these certain people, which is what like that's where you see the fine tuning. Like, yeah, I realize I'm one of the best out here. It'd be nice to get better. What is my area? What's my weakness right now? I'm gonna work on that while still maintaining all of your other stuff. And that's where you see the true separation from like, if you were, like we said, you were good enough to get to a certain point, you can stay there. But if you want to continue to grow, like you can't just, so, I mean, it's the same way we talked about at the very beginning where it's like a lot of people feel like their personality is formed by whatever age it is, probably by the time you get done with college, because that's almost like your next, when you really enter the real world, like this is who I am as a person, whenever it doesn't have to be. Like you don't have to just be this good at dribbling with your left hand. You can get, I mean, yeah, you can dribble with your left hand, but you could get a little bit better if you want to.
Right.
It's going to require more work.
Yeah.
You don't have to just be this smart or have this much knowledge. You could, like, you can formulate sentences and you can interact with people and have a conversation, but you could do more to expand your knowledge and stuff like that. So I really like that portion of it. It's basically what they were saying.
Yeah, it goes along with the saying, like, have you guys heard the saying where it's like, do you know which knife is the sharpest in your drawer?
I think I've heard that one before.
You never heard it? It's the one that you sharpen the most often.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't think I've heard
You
that.
never heard that?
Just put it plain like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
Alrighty, moving on. I had something on.
Oh, the one thing I thought was
Some
really cool
action.
though was about because I'm actually watching a documentary on this, that whole Pat Riley thing with the checks and like balances that he was doing on these people and like making them try and get like, I mean the math behind it, like I didn't understand that, but I was like, okay, I mean,
Who's
yeah,
Pat Riley?
he was the coach for the Lakers during the Magic Johnson.
Oh, they kind
Ken-
of mentioned
I think
the
he did.
Lakers in here.
Yeah.
No, that's what I'm talking about.
Oh,
I'm talking about that right now.
is it over here?
Yeah,
Is it
so
on here?
it's on
Oh, okay.
page 244 when
Oh,
they're
okay,
talking
okay.
about like Magic Johnson
Oh, yeah,
getting
yep.
those triple doubles and like he would always score the highest on the chart, but it wasn't about being the best on the team. It was about being better than yourself.
Yeah.
Like they didn't compare you to who the second best player in the league was. They didn't compare you to any of that. It was, did you do better today than you did last game? Did you do better this month than you did a year ago in this month?
Mm-hmm.
And like really comparing it to stuff like that. And his whole premise for that was sustaining an effort is the most important thing for any enterprise. The way to be successful is to learn how to do things right and then do them the same way every time. So it's one of those things where you just don't let it slip. Like if you've established the way, like it's not in the sense of like you do the same thing every day necessarily, like depending on if you're trying to get better. It's if you realize, hey, working out for 2 hours a day has really allowed me to reading for 1 hour a day has really allowed me to do this. So I'm just going to continue to make sure I do that every day. Otherwise, whenever you're not, you're actively making that decision to be like, I'm not getting better today, or I'm not using my full, extent of what I could and have done before today
Mm-hmm.
to get better. I thought that was like a pretty cool portion of it.
Yeah, the CBE program.
The CBE.
But anything else, guys, for the last chapter? You guys got anything else? You got anything, Landon?
We're good. There was a cool quote that was on 249 that literally just wrapped up the book. So I'll read it real quick. Men are born soft and supple. Dead, they are stiff and hard. Plants are born tender and pliant. Dead, they are brittle and dry. Thus, whoever is stiff and inflexible is a disciple of death. Whoever is soft and yielding is a disciple of life. The hard and stiff will be broken. The soft and supple will prevail. So that's from Lao Tzu. But that basically, it's hey, there it is. Was that gonna be? Is that gonna be quote of the day? There it is. I just thought that was cool. Where it's like, you see it in anything. If you're a teacher who doesn't change with the times, doesn't allow electronics or the use of that to enhance your classroom, you're gonna either become a worse teacher or you're going to not be teaching anymore. If you're a coach who sticks in the same ways, I know it's an offensive league now, but I'm going to focus on defense, and neglect the offensive end, you're going to end up becoming Bill Belichick. I mean, but like just different things like that. It works to all aspects of life, but it also just makes it easier for yourself because we always talk about, or I always think about, how can you handle situations with like less friction?
Yeah.
Like if there's some, like, maybe I don't agree with all this of what's being said, but let me at least, I'll hear this out, try and do things this way, and then we'll work within those boundaries compared to just being like, I don't want to do that, or I don't want things to be that way.
Yeah. And just like that, we finish book number 11. Book number 11, final thoughts, overall thoughts.
No final thoughts. It's your biggest takeaway.
Biggest takeaway.
You come on now. The biggest takeaway, I got a little laundry list, but it'll just take me a second to read. So we'll kick it over there with you first. What's your biggest, or Miguel, whichever one of you has your biggest takeaway ready to rock?
Yeah, bro. I was gonna say, biggest takeaway is definitely, you don't have to do everything all at once. And what I mean by that is, if you're starting a habit, literally, I'm gonna go back to the yoga mat example. You don't even have to do the yoga that day. You don't even have to stretch that day. You don't have to do anything with it. Just take the mat out, see it, and just keep doing that every day. Because then eventually you're gonna be like, hey,
keep it on your
now,
mind.
Yeah, like let me just go ahead and do it now because it's already there. I'm already doing all this effort to take it out, even though it's not much effort. But
take it out, put it up.
Yeah.
Take it out, put it somewhere that's in the middle of your way.
Exactly.
Where it's like, all right, the same thing with the book. Put the book on your pillow, stuff like that. I like it.
My biggest takeaway on this book was reevaluating yourself to the habit level and seeing which habits are applying to the identity that you want to become and which ones are taking away from that. And when it comes down to that, then it's really just black and white. It's like, look, just stop doing these habits. Like, they don't represent your identity that you're trying to do. And then because it comes down to, it's like, well, I like that habit. It's like, well, that's, you got to be okay with that.
Like stunning your growth, or
right. Or you got to change your identity. Like, clearly, if that's, what people do, like, of that type, and you want to do it and they don't, it's like, okay, well, then clearly you got to figure that out. I thought that was big. Landon, what was your key takeaway?
All right. Biggest takeaways for me, I said habits are a double-edged sword. They can work for you or they can work against you. and they don't, but they're not meant to restrict freedom. They actually create it if you kind of create those habits and the positive ones. I liked where it said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So it's one of those things basically that goes to your point, like having a conscious identity of who you want to be, because anyone can, if you're not like keeping track of it, just kind of not even notice what's going on. But I like where it said the people with the best self control are usually the ones who put themselves in position to use it the least.
Yeah.
That was a big point
Yeah,
that
was
they
a big,
said
I
earlier
remember
on.
that. Yeah.
When forming a habit, never miss twice. We talked about that today. Missing once is an accident, but twice starts a new habit. I put down get an accountability partner if you can in some form. It can be your significant other. Even start small, like don't make it your darkest habit if you have those. Start with the habit like, hey, it almost points to progress. Like pick a habit that you think you should get rid of, and then once you get rid of that, pick the habit you should get rid of.
Yeah.
And try and get rid of that. And then my last one was just the way to be successful is to learn how to do things right and then to do them the same way every time. That's basically the quote from Pat Riley from what he said is once you can establish what works for you, what the right way is to do them, who you're trying to become, then it's, like he said, he doesn't want to make it's tiny changes and he doesn't want to make it too much. Then you just, figure it out and then just do it that way again and again and again.
There you go. There you go.
Wraps
Fantastic book of Atomic Habits by James Clear. Over 10 million copies sold. And is it 10 million? Yeah, right. Over 10 million copies
Over
sold.
10 million copies sold. Oh yeah, he's doing it off the cuff.
Yeah.
He took off his hardcover.
And yeah, guys, that was a great one. But now we have to decide: are we doing our short snippets?
No, we gotta debut the new
We're
book.
debuting the new book.
We
All
gotta
right.
Debut the new book.
Book number 12.
Before you leave us off on your tangent.
Miguel.
Let's go. Here we go.
What do we have in
the table.
store? Yeah, there should be. I think there's one with 2 and one with 1.
All right.
Take one and pass it down.
This is the book.
It's upside down. You're good.
What is it? What is it? You tell me.
Fall back down when I die.
Joe Wilkins.
Fall
All
back
right.
down when I die.
So, quick preface to this.
Talk to me.
I think this was COVID year. I was in New York for that month, and I was in Brooklyn walking around, and there was this little spot. They were giving books away for free, and this was one of the books that was in the bin, and I picked it up. Didn't look at it since then. It's been in my house. It's just been sitting there, and I just have not even looked at it. And then I finally picked it up the other day because I was moving my books on the bookshelf, because we're up to, bro, this is book number 12.
Book number 12.
But
12.
picked it up, and I read the back of the book finally, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try
Ready to dive in?
this because it sounds like it's gonna be fun.
So is it like a... Okay, so this is a... Wilkins has produced a remarkable book. He delivers a Shakespearean mix of drama, mortal danger, and crisp and beautiful language.
This novel instills hope.
I like it, and it's fiction too. I mean, I'm off. That's gonna be my next book too. I think I'm gonna go with the fiction book
Cool.
just to switch it up. But this is exciting, man.
It's
I'm
a beefy
pumped.
book too, man.
Yeah, it is, bro. That's what I was.
It's not any longer than the one we just read, dog.
It's not too bad.
What are you
but
talking about?
Maybe I'm just not used to the small font. We're
You-
going back
yeah.
to
Oh, the font.
Yeah,
Okay.
the font size.
Let's see. I don't know about
243.
that. It's a smaller book though.
243.
Let's go
It's like they had to compress it more. I don't know. Here, look. Let's do this.
Start.
How many lines are on each page? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 10,
This is
11, 12,
interesting.
13.
Okay, so this is kind of like the way it looks like is this is kind of like
You're
how
right
that
about
mystery book is, like where like it jumps between these people
Mm-hmm.
throughout the entire thing. Okay, so it looks like page 243 is the last page, and it starts,
First on what?
I think, on Veril.
Veril. Oh, are there page numbers? That's about to be crazy.
No, there are.
Oh, okay, there are page.
That's sick.
Okay, gotcha. It didn't
Okay.
have on the first Windle. It didn't have a page number, and I was like, oh, here we go. On Burl, it didn't have a page number.
All
Either.
right, so
So it
243.
technically starts on 4 if we're starting on Burl.
Okay, so
It just doesn't have it
2
numbered.
So 239 minus or divided by 4.
Why 239? Oh, okay.
243 minus 4, right?
Is that what it was? Okay, yeah, you're right. Yeah, it starts. Yeah, starts on page 4.
All right, so it's 60 pages.
60 pages. Who we around? Who we got around? Oh, is that a perfect stop? Perfect stop on Burl again. Pick up on Burl and on Burl. We're going Burl to Burl.
All right.
I'm gonna
Awesome.
write that down.
Awesome. Can't wait.
Got a pen.
Can't wait. It's interesting. So, book in the bin, huh?
Yeah, bro.
All right.
Just a random book. I was like, the cover looked really cool. So
Yeah.
I was like, you know what?
Here we go. This
Shakespeare,
book,
man.
the book's gonna rock us. Ready? Just be like, oh my gosh, Miguel.
I just, I just.
Of course, the book in the bin.
Shakespeare. Hey, he did it. He
Brings
did
me a
it.
tear to my
He
eye.
somewhat did it before with the War of Art.
True.
That was a good book, though. That was
enjoyed
that
that
was
one
our
too.
most unique book
Yeah.
in the sense of like it was. I mean, that was our easiest read just because all the pages weren't
Oh, it was
like
like
it
what?
wasn't full
Yeah.
pages.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a quick one. All right. So, there you go, guys. We're gonna be starting off
The final book
final book of the year.
of the year
12, I guess.
of the actual year, right? Because
Of
the
our-
year starts in
of our
March.
season.
Yeah, it doesn't
If
start
this
in
is a
January.
show.
The Mayans can have it.
Fall Back Down When I Die by Joe Wilkins. Guys, go pick this up at your favorite bookstore on Amazon. We'll leave a link down in the description. Gives us a little bit of commission to keep this show running
Yeah,
if you want to do that as well. But
please.
and,
I'd be curious to see the numbers on how many people have bought from that. Verl to Verl.
there you go, Vero to Vero, guys, and we will be back with a little summary of what our key takeaways were next week, hopefully. But it is now time for our short snippets. Who wants to go first? Miguel, start us off
Kick
with
it
the
off on the
quote of the
right.
day, part 2.
Let's go.
I know.
You know
I
what?
stole his
made
quote.
No, it's all good, bro. I made it easier for myself. I finally got a nap.
We got an app.
Results happen over time, not overnight. Work hard, stay consistent, and be patient.
Right on track. Right on track with the habit book.
Exactly.
Way to bring it to a close. I think my question actually I chose something along habits as well. Okay, yeah. So here we go. Now it's time for our thought-provoking question. For those who don't know what my part of this is, what is one part of your routine you'd be better off without?
What was it again?
What is one part of your routine that you would be better off without?
Oh,
It
for
doesn't have
sh-
to be anything super deep, or it can be. You were about to say something. Did I say it doesn't have to be deep? Were you about to out yourself, or
No,
were you
no,
about
no.
to think
Def-
deeper?
I definitely have a habit of checking my phone in the morning,
I was just gonna say
and
that
it
too.
sucks.
Yeah.
Man, that cannot be all three of our
No,
answers.
it's-
Dude, I was like,
Dude, I mean,
well, because before we had
I
one,
gotta
I
get
don't remember
better at
what
that.
book it was, where it was like, stop getting on social media, and like now I make it a specific, like I for a long time I made it a specific point to not do it, to like just not check my phone as often, even at like stoplights in line, and I can't remember what book led to that transition, but like yeah, I guess with anything, it's kind of a perfect summary of the Atomic Habits. Is I think about it, but I'm not disciplined enough lately to be like to not do it entirely.
yeah, I think today it was my last day. I'm gonna put my phone in my bathroom now when I go to bed.
I like that.
You have an alarm clock?
I bought one. Yeah.
Okay, I'm like, dude, how are you waking up? Just hoping, just waking up everyone in the house.
But yeah, no, I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it
I'm gonna
tonight.
try that. I might put mine in the kitchen, so
Yeah.
I force myself to get up and make myself a little bit of breakfast.
Oh, there you go. I like that.
Do that.
What about
I-
you?
Dude, that was gonna be mine. I was gonna use it because I figured you guys would have something different because I had said that because that was something before. that
Okay,
we
so
had
how are
talked
you
about.
gonna prevent phone in the morning?
Gosh, I don't know because I use my phone as my alarm clock. So
That's the tough part.
I mean,
Okay, I bought one.
I'm just gonna do it. I might even tell my accountability partner, like, hey, ask me if I've been getting on my phone in the morning before I go to work.
I'm
Maybe
gonna,
I'll do
I'm
that.
gonna ask him every week now. On this
Yeah, do that.
podcast.
I guess do that.
We're gonna
Yeah,
ask.
me on the
We're gonna
podcast.
ask him on the
You
podcast.
guys can be my accountability
did you
partners,
check
and you
this-
guys put your phones in the kitchen and dining room or wherever bathroom.
There you go. There you go.
We're gonna do it.
Like,
guys.
wait, you got an alarm clock?
No. Well, yeah.
Just
Brother,
say, what's
cheat
your
human
plan?
form.
They're cheap. Oh
You are not a human alarm clock.
no.
You wake up.
No,
you
he's
just
not,
wake
he's
up,
toddler.
dude. Oh.
Yeah, she wakes me
Dude,
up.
I was just saying, I was like, there's no way, because there's people that can do that. There's people that like
Oh.
can just like wake up, like just have to wake up at a certain time. so-
Honestly,
You're saying you can't right now?
What do you mean?
Out of waking up, like we've been on
Like
the
if I-
same schedule for probably
No,
like
I mean
2
I
years.
I might, but like
It'd be close.
I feel like mine would dictate. Like mine would probably honestly dictate like if I stay up and watch a game or not.
Mm.
Like typically, I mean, if I'm not watching a game, I'll go to bed around 9 or 10. If I am watching a game, it might be 11:30, 12.
So do you set your
So I feel-
alarm on the weekends?
I actually do set my alarm on the weekends.
Oh, see, I don't, and I still wake up at the same
I
time.
do. I set my alarm on the weekends for like 8 o'clock at the latest.
That's good though. I mean, they say
That's interesting. That
you
I
should
yeah I
keep
hadn't even thought about that.
routine,
Yeah.
So it makes it easier for you to, because
'Cause
that's
that's-
what I try to do.
And that's typically when I do my reading. It's like I'll try and read before Sam gets up.
Mm.
So I'll set my alarm for like 8 because she doesn't set her alarm on the weekends.
Mm.
So I'll wake up at like 7:30, 8 o'clock, depending, literally depending on what time I go to bed. Like if we end up getting tired around 11, I'll try and wake up closer to 7, stay up past midnight, try and wake up closer to 8,
Mm.
a little after.
Hmm.
Try
There
and
you
keep it around that 8 hours.
Can't go past 5:30. So
That's crazy.
no matter what.
That's,
time of night
I didn't forget,
no
but
matter what.
I didn't forget, but I wasn't thinking about that. You're probably like a Hall of Fame napper right now, though.
Oh my god.
Just napping like crazy.
Save it.
I heard it gets better after 8 months, is what I was reading on Twitter this morning, which indeed.
How is that on
But-
your feed? What's your feed?
it's
You don't got a
everything.
baby?
It's everything.
It's everything. It's a
Alright.
For You page now. It's no longer.
It
follow.
is. It
Here
is.
we go.
Okay,
What is it time for?
3 options.
Love this.
Huh?
Here we
What's
go.
it time for?
It's
Introduce your
time. It's
segment.
time for.
Dun,
Are they wrong?
dun,
Oh, are they wrong?
Are they wrong?
Not am I wrong? Are they wrong?
Are they wrong? Okay. Top 3. Yeah. These are the top 3 posts of the week. Starting off with the one. Am I wrong? I'm just reading the titles.
Okay.
You get to choose. Am I wrong for friend zoning my wife? Am I wrong for giving my girlfriend an ultimatum between me and the desire for having kids?
Oh.
Am I wrong for throwing out my pregnant girlfriend who won't pay rent?
Holy
Okay,
crap.
not that one. You pick between the first two.
Let's go with the first one.
First one.
That sounds big.
Friend zoning?
Am I wrong for friend zoning my wife? I am 44. I've been married to my wife, 39, who's just over 20 years long. I've been getting along very well, and we both care about each other very much. I can truly say she is the best and closest friend I know, and we can both trust each other with anything. We have so much shared history together, and we have been there for each other through hard times and good times. Right now, we are financially comfortable, and we both work full time. She is at work from home. I commute about 40 minutes each way. We have 2 kids, 20 and 18, who are in college but still live at home, and we are paying their tuition. For the first 5 years or so, we were both very physically affectionate with each other. We had the S word all the time. Even with small children, our lives, our sexual lives,
Now you're
Um,
gonna say it.
were healthy. After a while, I guess things got busier for both of us. We still had S word regularly. We still would wrestle regularly. It was less spontaneous, mostly on the weekends. It stayed like that for years. But around 3 or 4 years ago, things slowed down a lot. It got to where she was only interested if she was ovulating or on her period and no other time.
Wow.
Then after a while, it got to be less frequent to the point where it was only 5 to 7 times per year. For me, the lack of physical intimacy was excruciating. When I would still talk about it with her, she would just say she would still find me attractive and that I'm not doing anything to turn her off. She let me know that she isn't put off by any of my pursuits and typically feels flattered when I show an interest. She said that she said that I was being rejected about 19 out of 20 times. I got to a point where I was just unable to reconcile the sexual rejections and lack of physical intimacy against the rest of our otherwise wonderful relationship. Then one day, something just snapped inside me. I decided that I couldn't live with this inside this turmoil anymore. And so, in a sort of Hail Mary style fashion to save my sanity, I decided to try something new. I started to make myself think of her the same way I think of my friends, my coworkers. Anytime I find myself thinking of her sexually, I would tell myself, no, that thought is inappropriate. And then I would just quickly engage in something else to occupy my time. At first, it was difficult. After a few months, I trained my brain to think of my wife as more as a friend and not entertain sexual thoughts of her all the time. During this time, about 5 months, she seemed completely oblivious to it. Recently, however, she tried to come to me she tried to come on to me and I rejected her. I wasn't rude or anything, but I honestly wasn't just in the mood, probably for the first time in decades, LOL. She wasn't thrilled, but she seemed okay with about. The next day was a Saturday, and she obviously was feeling amorous and wasn't feeling up to it. Now that I couldn't have, but it somehow seemed that like a step down for my self-respect, self-worth. Oh my goodness. Okay, we're almost there.
This is
I would
Go ahead.
suddenly be no better than a dog waiting for scraps. Oliver Twist begging for another cup of gruel. It doesn't just seem right. I never said any of that. I just politely turned her down, and I had some other things I was planning to do, which is actually true. That night, I found her crying in her bedroom and was asked what was wrong. She felt like as though I didn't love her anymore, that I was rejecting her for really hurting her feelings. I assured her that it's still love, as I love her as much as ever, and did not take the opportunity. I did take the opportunity to explain how I have been feeling and how I was dealing with it. She did not take it well. She yelled and cried and accused me of cheating and said it was being unfair to her, and basically insinuating that if I didn't want to have sex with her, then there must be something wrong with her or me, that I must be planning on to leave her, or I'm hiding something. Was completely forthright with her and tried to get her to understand my position. I told her that it felt demoralizing for me to wait around like a concubine for months for her to be in the mood, and that is the time for me to start working on me. I honestly have no plans to leave her, and I told her so, but I also told her that I don't want have the ability to take to be sometimes a lover. Wait, I don't have the ability to be sometimes a lover. It would eventually take an enormous toll on me. She accused me of throwing her sexuality in her face, and she can't help the way she is. I told her that I do accept her for who she is, but I also need to accept for who I am. From there, it just seems like we talked in circles for the next 2 hours. Since then, she has barely said a word to me, and it has been about a week. I am really starting to doubt myself and my actions here, and I'm starting to wonder if I'm really wrong.
Wow.
Yo.
I was not thinking that when you said friend zone off the top. I didn't know what I was expecting. I don't think I was expecting that. I don't know, bro.
Yeah, please lead us off.
I think that this dude is. I'm gonna say he's wrong. He's wrong for thinking of his wife in that way, because it's like if that's the issue, right? Like she's saying there's nothing wrong. It's just how it is. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Like when your woman gets pregnant, like I mean,
Here we go.
yeah, it's like, bro, it's still there. Like the desire to do what you guys were doing prior to the pregnancy is still there. So I mean, that's a conversation for you to have with your spouse or significant other or whatever. But I mean, it's still there. The desire as a man is still there. And then afterwards, that's when it gets even harder because it's like you have that period where it's like, okay, the baby's almost here. Like, let's not do this anymore because my body's starting to like, it just
Right.
for the woman it affects her way more than it does for us men. And then yeah, like the time afterwards, it's like okay, depending on what happened, if it was like a true like vaginal birth or if it was like a C-section, like those are
It's like a healing period.
exactly.
Yeah.
So those are both like time. So you get about 8 months of no intimacy, depending on your relationship. I mean, luckily, there's ways. We won't go too deep into that, but
5 to 7 times a year,
A
though.
year.
Yeah,
Before,
Five
after 20. That's
to
what I'm trying to
7
think about.
times.
yeah, that's pretty crazy.
So here, this is where I'll jump in now. Man, that's
Well, first, are they wrong?
dude. I'm a little more on the side of the guy with this.
Ooh,
I'm
is
not
this
gonna-
our
just
first
a-
one?
I'm saying a little bit. I'm not different. I'm not on definite sides. The way you brought it up
Yeah.
is the exact where I'm not on his side, which is the portion of I think it's a little bit tough if you have to, because here what I struggle with is typically that bleeds into the relationship, right? Like how does it for me? I'll even just for me. I mean, it would.
Yeah,
It
for
would
sure.
bleed into like
100%.
no, just because if you really want it, like you really desire it, you are getting shot down 19 of 20 times. Like these are just what they were saying, and then like, but we have a great relationship. Then almost, I mean, and I'm not speaking. It almost sounds like someone's acting.
Yeah.
Right.
Like you can't
Yeah.
be Like or you don't really want it that bad. So this guy almost sounds like he's maybe playing tennis back and forth in his head about what side he's on. But if we're just going to talk about like the specific, like what that situation would look like, if it's not affecting the relationship negatively, then I think that's really tough for you to just uh, have to shift it all the way in your brain to be like, hey, I'm gonna like the whole phrasing of I'm
Right.
gonna look
She's
at
my
you as my
coworker.
coworker
Yeah, that's
to
crazy.
get. I mean, but like we've talked about the mental tricks. Like I mean, whatever you got to do to get yourself to a certain point. Where it's like, I mean, hopefully you're not treating her like a friend in any other way, or you're not as friendly with your friends as you are with her, like you're obviously still more than that plus that, because otherwise how do you have a super like how do you have a good relationship in that way? But like I do get the whole point of like the same way you kind of said about like how especially around pregnancy, how like what women are dealing with is super different. I think that's why it's really important that you probably do have to have those conversations about what you want it to look like down the line. Whenever you are going to choose someone to marry, where it's just like, I mean, because like the same way people are so different, like we just finished talking about in our book, people are so different even whenever it comes to that type of stuff, where it's like, not every dude is just like feeling all hot and heavy 24/7. Sometimes maybe he is more like this woman is, where it's like, whenever you're in the mood, I'm in the mood. Otherwise, we'll just leave it. Because for me, it'd be like if you're constantly pursuing and you're striking out most of the time, who does that say more about? Like that would be that would just be
Yeah,
my only argument. Like,
yeah.
oh, but then it gets turned. Like the only thing she would have to be upset about is the way he said it.
Mhm.
I don't think he's wrong for what he did. Just because whenever he was constantly trying to pursue her, she's like, "Oh, it's not because I'm not attracted to you." Da, da, da.
Right.
Well, he would say that he would have to say the same thing because he
Right.
still said he's getting those thoughts.
Right.
He had to train himself to not get those thoughts. You're still sleeping in the same bed. I don't know if they shower together. I don't know about any of that stuff, because otherwise, how do you play that off? Like, what do you just not look at your wife in the shower, or do you just
That's
not look at her when she's so
that's
like?
my thing.
Probably.
So
Probably if it's a coworker, if he's taking it to that extreme.
so if he's taking it to that extreme, that's the area. But that's where I said I'm like, but like I think the premise of it isn't necessarily wrong because he was driven to that point. I think there's some accountability there, maybe on the other end as well. I mean, but yeah, for in that way, I just have a hard time. I mean, they have to phrase it probably a certain way. I don't know if it's a real story or not. If it is a real story,
Seemed very
it's I mean it's very it's
That's like
very
that, yeah.
elaborate. So I mean it definitely could be. I just have a hard time from my vantage point as to how that would just not bleed into the relationship even after all those years.
Oh,
Like
true.
I mean I'm talking like I think it wouldn't make it a year for me in the sense of like it to where it's at least a conversation that
Yeah,
you're talking
right.
about it. Like he said, oh, it used to, it's definitely gone down, and then it's gone down the next decade, and then it went down a little more the next decade. But these last 5 years, it's basically twice a year or whatever it is. Like, how are you? If it's if he's like maybe a typical guy, that's gonna be weighing on your conscience a little bit. Like, how is it not affecting anything else?
Yeah.
Would be my question.
I
But
think my only other part is just if I'm marrying well, you married this woman, like you clearly have some type of attraction to her.
right,
In my mind, at least, the woman I want to marry, like I want to be able to look at her and be like, yeah, like my wife is beautiful, my wife is amazing. Like I want to.
Right. You want to share that affection.
Yeah, like I
Yeah.
want it to be like, I want to be able to give off that energy, that quote unquote sexual energy without it being like, I mean, we don't have to have sex 24/7, but like even just having that energy with your wife, I feel like that's something.
you have to be able to lean into that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Just
yeah.
because like I mean, it's one of those questions where it's like it'd be disrespectful to be like, "Hey, do you think I'm like the prettiest person in the whole world?"
Mhm.
and then mean it in a literal sense. Like if you can't like be like, "You're the prettiest to me."
Mhm.
Like you are the prettiest to me, and so, like I mean, not even like we're all like younger, more kind of in shape guys. But even if it was just like both like a couple of us were pushing like 250, and it's like, hey, am I the
Yeah.
most attractive person in the world?
Yeah.
Like, do you think I'm the hottest person alive? It's one of those things where it's just like, oh, you like it is. You answer it in the way of to me.
Mm-hmm.
To me, of course you are, because you're the person that I'm looking at. You're the certain things like that. But that leads us to the very exciting and anticipatory answer of what do you think?
No, I definitely think he's wrong. I do think he's wrong. Um, simply because of the one thing where he is treating like he wants to be intimate with her, even
And
though
makes the effort.
and she even right, and he does, and he's striking out. So he thinks this way, perfectly fine. But then when she is intimate, he turns her down. Like
Yeah.
that part, I'm like, come on, like you gotta. I mean, now you're cutting it completely off.
I think the tough part with that is he didn't seem to do it in an impolite manner.
Right.
I think that's the consequences of actions just from like the way I view it is it's like I don't think that she was doing it in a mean way to him,
No.
but she was doing it in service of herself, right? Because if he
Right.
because if he wants to have sex and she doesn't,
Right.
maybe at that moment, then she's doing it in service of herself,
Right.
right? So whenever she's all
The
of a
roles
sudden
are
trying to
flipped.
come on to him
Yeah.
and he's like, hey, I've like built up all this time trying to not haggle with you about this certain area. So I'm going to politely turn you down. I'm not going to say I don't find you
Right, right.
So then, of course, your mind's going to start spinning if it's your first time, not your 19th time that month
Right.
being turned down. Hey, let's just
Exactly.
let.
She's
I
never been
just,
turned down.
I just try and
Right.
zoom out and just try and look at it from the whole thing just because, like, I don't think that, I mean, like I said, I lean his way, but I don't think everything he did was right.
Right.
Not at all. Not at all.
I agree.
But
I
like
agree to
but
that.
from your but like from that specific example, like whenever it comes down to, all of a sudden she like then it just comes down to what's fair and what's not fair. Who's like are we keeping track of like certain things like that because that's the only kind of spot that I'm coming from that.
Yeah. No. I think that like clearly they should have saw someone.
The
Some
exact. I
professional
mean,
help.
you
once
gotta
it,
you
once
gotta
it
talk.
dropped
You
down
gotta
from whatever it
Probably
was to
even-
5 to 7. I would have been like a
That's crazy.
year is crazy.
And the thing is, it's tough too because he said what 20 something years. Like we can't fast forward to that. We've all been with our significant others for significantly less time than that.
Yeah.
So it'd be and you haven't even gotten married yet. So
Yeah.
it's like, whenever it comes down to, I mean, you guys are like living together.
Yeah.
They still live with their parents.
Yeah.
So like whenever it comes down to like really living with your significant other and kind of being around them more, it's just that you probably notice it within the first month of a decline. I mean, the first month you're together, it might be 25 out of 30 days. It might be something crazy. It might be something crazy.
Yeah.
Truthfully,
Yeah.
exactly. And then the next month it's 23, and then it's 20, and then anyone can settle with around 15 to whatever it is,
Right.
depending on. He said at first they were like crazy.
Yeah.
Like they were. It's not like this
Oh,
is a case.
definitely.
It's not like, and that's where I really do side a little bit more with the guy. Just if they had that conversation, if they had that conversation, and there was once all of that, because you would think it doesn't just go away, or you would hope that it wouldn't. But maybe
Right,
that's
like
what happens with time. But that's when the conversations have to be had.
Yeah, I agree. I think okay. So follow up, just from your guys' opinion, at what point, at what rate, is that conversation start happening?
Oh man, bro.
That's tough.
I-
5 to
it's
7, 5 to 7,
5 to
a
7
year
feels crazy.
immediately.
That's a little
That's
too.
crazy.
That's
Immediately.
It's a little
That's
crazy.
honestly I mean, I've gone like, I've gone a year with no intimacy with a woman before.
While
So
you
that's
were
kinda-
while you were together.
Yeah, yeah.
And you were good
yeah.
with that though, or no?
I
Like
mean,
what? Like I guess I'm saying like what point where you're like, all right, it's been a while.
Okay, to answer that question specifically and direct, I would say like if I don't know, cause if we don't have sex at all in a month, like for no reason at all.
So once a
like,
month,
Yeah.
you're like, what's
it's,
up? Like what's going on?
Once or twice a month, yeah.
Yeah.
Cause I mean, my situation now,
Right. Obviously it's changed,
it's
but
different, yeah.
yeah, but in overall aspect, on average, for any type of male,
Right.
Landon.
And I would say
once or twice.
just subtle plug back to the book. I think it's about the habits that you've
Yeah.
created, like as a sense of like.
True.
I mean, because for a lot of I'll just speak for myself then. A lot like
It's
just-
true. It
just
is
for-
true that
just
though.
for
Like
whatever-
if you guys want it more, like you guys
Well,
gotta
yeah,
work
like,
toward it,
just
make,
for whatever
make the
it is,
time,
like-
stuff like that. No, I agree that.
I don't know how many of us,
Oh.
because we don't know how we all talk to girls. Like we don't know how we all try and get someone to like us and certain stuff like that. But as athletes and stuff like, I don't even want to stigmatize athletes, but it was always one of those things where it was just like, there's that type of almost infatuation and stuff like that where You know, I mean, for me personally, it would be in the very beginning stages, that attraction, that want to, whether it be want to be together, to kiss, to do whatever it is, at that stage is like a big bulk of the conversations being had. It's not
Oh
like
yeah,
how's
yeah,
your day.
yeah,
Da da
yeah,
da. It's like I really wish I could kiss you right.
yeah, yeah,
Da da da. I wish I could be with you right now.
yeah,
I
yeah.
wish I could do this with you right now. And that's like it'd be in the middle of it. It'd just be like, oh yeah, you know, I'm heading to math class, and then boom, it'd be like a text about that, just totally off the rip. That goes away.
Right.
Like that obviously dies down. But if you had that and you have that, like that. I think that's where it comes down to like, you know, with the case of them being so uh being bunnies in the beginning, I guess. Whenever it like that's a pretty tough fall. But to your point, like if you can go a full month, like I am someone who would be thinking of the case where it's like, you know, what's different, like
Right. What's up?
what are
going
we
on?
doing
Yeah,
different,
yeah.
like it's the whole if
Yeah.
it because like for me it would just be like, you know, I would, you know, make sure that you're in shape or whatever, to where it's like, hey, like are you still finding me attractive? I feel like that's the tale as old as time, where it's just
Right.
like
So those thoughts kind of start coming in
they
about,
start
1 month, nothing. You're
just
like,
because it's out of the norm. And I think this is the biggest one. I'll just kind of wrap it up here for me, is where it's just like if it all of a sudden goes away, then it starts to feel like, you know, I wouldn't want to do it because you don't want it like I feel you should, would, did want it.
right,
You know what it is?
Right.
It's just, like I think that's just the
right.
overarching
It's like out of
thought.
character. Yeah.
It's just like, okay, you don't need it, then I'm gonna act like I don't need it either. I
Right.
feel like that's his final approach, where he's like, you acted like you didn't need it for so long.
Right.
In this moment, you feel like you need it, because who goes that long without really wanting it? Okay, well you do, and then all of a sudden you want it. Well, I'm gonna deny it so you can explain.
Right.
So you could, like, why do you need it now, but you didn't need it then, or maybe you don't need it, but then why are you crying about it?
Right.
If you don't need, and then it's like, then you gotta try and have those conversations in a polite manner, because obviously that's a sensitive subject. But
Yeah. No, I think they definitely need to go see someone
It's
because
something deeper, bro.
yeah, there's.
but that's
5
and
to
that's where it
7
comes
a
down.
year.
That's where, like, you can only go off of what the person types. If it is a
Right,
real
right.
person, then obviously you don't know how many
Right.
cards they're keeping close to their hand.
You never
But
know
it's
their
one of the-
side, the
but it-
others, other side.
But it
of
is
the
one of
story.
those things where it's just like, you know, but I do want to ask you, so how often, like, what would be, like I said, I mean, you're not married, and you've done long distance, honestly, with your girlfriend for a portion of time, and you both live in your parents' houses, so obviously that can complicate things. But
Oh yeah, I mean,
what would
but
you
we
say,
haven't
like, it would
been-
be like a noticeable, like, if you were just got to put yourself in a certain place, just be like, what do you feel like in this moment? Once you get married, it could obviously change.
Yeah,
We're
honestly,
asking you this question
I have
early.
no clue because we've been
And that's a cool thing, though, because that means that your relationship isn't really built off that. Like a lot of
Yeah.
relationships, dude, a lot of them that even I get, if they're built off that,
Yeah.
that has to stay.
Yeah.
You know, if they're built off that, it has to stay part of it.
yeah.
It has to. It doesn't. It can move from priority number one, because it probably is, whenever you first get started. I mean, especially whenever you're young. It can move to 2, 3, 4, as long as those top three are super great.
Yeah.
But like, it can't move too far down.
Well, funny enough, ours. So it was like that, and then we cut it off, and we've been waiting since. So
That's
it's
good,
been
bro.
like, I don't know, 6 years or something
Really?
like that.
That's really good.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Like I can't
Yeah,
answer
yeah.
because it's been
That's
6
tough.
years.
Yeah, that's
It's been
tough.
6
Hey,
years.
we'll revisit this in like, hey, same
But
time.
even then,
hey,
though,
same
even
time
then, though,
next
it's
year.
not gonna
No,
work.
same time
Yeah.
next year. No, you're getting married here in a few months. Same time next year.
Yeah.
Mark it
so
down. I'll find a calendar.
I
gonna
can't
set an
tell.
alarm on my
Can't
phone.
tell right now.
We'll
good, though.
revisit.
yeah.
Come back and see that
It's
conversation.
been tough.
We're gonna go through that exact same thing. You'll have your kid for longer.
Right,
You'll be
right.
out of that phase. I mean, I'll been married for another 5 months or whatever,
Right.
and you'll be
I'll be just
married.
starting up.
Newly.
You'll be
Yeah.
just starting up. I'll be like, hey, Chase, and he's gonna be like, oh boys, I got something to say.
I can finally answer.
All right.
All right. Well, that's gonna wrap up this this episode of the Book Club Bros, and we are starting book number 12, "Fall Back
So
Down
bad.
When I Die" by Joe Wilkins, and we are reading up to page
60. Literally 60.
Yes, up
Verl
to page
to Verl.
60. Verl to Verl, guys, and we'll let you know what our highlights are next. Make sure to stay tuned, guys.